I have a video today I have to react to. Graham Stephan did a video about the Great Resignation, a topic very near and dear to my heart. And I have to react to this because there's a lot of really good content. So let's get right into it.
What's up, you guys? It's Graham here. So 1 year ago, we were introduced to a topic that most people never expected. It was called the Great Resignation.
And just to explain that real quick, that's where so many people are quitting their jobs because after the Rona happened, nobody wants to go back into an office. After the lockdown, so many people were sent home to work from home, including me. And for the better part of 2 years, most all of us have been working from home. And now companies are trying to force us back into an office. And most of us don't want to go back into an office. I'm one of those people. I hate being in an office. So that's that.
40% of workers thought about quitting their jobs, with "I quit" being the sign of an economic recovery. But now
Hand raised here. I'm one of those.
it appears as though the
Why do you think I'm doing YouTube?
turns have tabled. It was just reported that 50% of companies want workers back in the office 5 days.
No, this article, there's no way. Like, this just makes my blood boil seeing this. Like, I would be done completely. I will never go back to a 5 day a week schedule in the office. Never. That's over for me. And the funny thing, I've actually seen one of the Graham's early videos he did, why I can never work a 9 to 5 job ever again. That's going to be me. Like, I would immediately, if my company forced me back 5 days a week, I would be gone, and I would be doing a video also about why I could never work another 9 to 5 job.
A week. And in a surprising twist of events, there might now be another wave of Great Resignation.
That's exactly right. What he's saying here, this could trigger another wave of great resignations because there are a lot of people that don't want to go back to a 5 day in the week in the office schedule. And I can totally understand and totally empathize. This is an issue that I have to say unites people like no other issue I've ever seen. And I just think that a lot of management out there is really stubborn and they're living a 20th century mentality. And this is something like I wholeheartedly agree and empathize with anybody that doesn't want to go into an office. It's an outdated model. The only thing they can say in support of it is collaboration. And that's not even that convincing because, 21st century here, hello, we have phones, we have Zoom, we have all these tools that, I mean, what have we been doing for the last 2 years, right? Collaborating remotely. Anyway.
Nations during a time where 72% of workers regret their new.
Now I'm starting to see this headline a lot more, that 70% of workers regret quitting their job. And I think that management's mentality, because it's a little bit, I mean, let's be honest, employees versus management. And right now, employees have more leverage than they've had in a while. But I'm starting to see these articles surface about how 70% of workers are regretting quitting their job. So I can almost hear like the management's collective mindset in the background saying, ha, we knew it wasn't going to work. We knew you were going to regret it. And I think the mindset among them is that employees are going to either run out of the savings they have, or all the government benefits that have been going on during the Rona are going to come to an end, which will happen sooner or later. But in a cynical way, I think that the management class is looking at this like, haha, you guys, we knew you were going to be proven wrong. You're going to fail at this endeavor and you're going to be forced back into the grips of the office.
Job and might have to leave again. So let's talk about exactly what's going on, why so many people are about to quit their jobs for a second time, why the majority of millennials have
It would be a first time for me.
A major regret after leaving, and then finally, most importantly, what you could do about this information to make money, because that's what we talk about here as a personal finance channel on YouTube. Although before we start, did you know that 72% of employees regret not smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm?
That goes from my channel too. Smash the like button and subscribe to my channel.
Well, thankfully, it's not too late to give it a gentle tap or subscribe if you haven't done that already. And as a thank you for doing that, here's a picture of a chipmunk. So thank you so much for doing that. And also big thank you to ZipRecruiter for sponsoring.
I should probably skip some of this.
States, which forced non-essential businesses to close down and in the process either lay off or furlough their workers. However, a year later, when our economy began to reopen, it became apparent that employers were now having a difficult time getting people to return back to the office.
I wonder why that is. I would say the genie's out of the bottle. I would say giving people 2 years of working at home it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to put that genie back into the bottle.
Because on the one side, companies found increased productivity and creativity.
Increased productivity? That's right. They were saying that for a while until all of a sudden they wanted people back in the office. All the talk of how productive people were at home has suddenly kind of subsided.
From the people who worked in person, while employees were 22% happier, less stressed, and more focused working from home. Other
Exactly.
employees simply don't want to return to the office, having worked remotely or having relocated to an area that makes that difficult to do.
Exactly
so throughout the
right.
last year, we have seen record high numbers of workers quitting their jobs for better opportunities with this movement known as the Great Resignation. However, even though this sounds like it should be a really good thing, 1 year later, 72% of workers who quit their job now regret their decision to leave.
See, if you can make it to where you leave the workforce entirely, you become a YouTuber full time. What regret is there in that? That's the best job you can have. You get to stay at home permanently. So, I mean, there's no regret in that. But going to another job, I can see why there would be a regret.
So to answer why and the impact this is going to have throughout the entire economy, we first have to explain why so many employees are choosing to leave, because you might find yourself in a similar position as well.
Yep,
First,
I'm in
employees
a
quit.
similar position. Skip this
We
ad.
are going to go into the new building A of the ramp.
It's because they wanted to work from home. The reality is, many employees got used to working remotely, not having a commute, and being able to focus on their work without any office distraction. And that's something that they want to keep. In fact, it was found that 1 in 4 pandemic homebuyers would choose to stay at their new home and find a new job if it required them to return to the office. On top of that, 10,000 employees surveyed thought that they were just as productive working from home. 30% of those are
Actually more productive. And I'll even add to that. I will say being in an office sucks. You have just so many different things. As everybody knows that's been in an office, you have nosy coworkers, you have more of a micromanagement dynamic. You'll get people that want to treat you like a 5-year-old. And like I said, I've even seen Graham do a video on this on his channel, like why I can never work a 9-to-5 job, which is why I'm kind of surprised the way this video turns towards almost being supportive of going back to the office. It's kind of like, dude, you're a YouTuber, like you experienced this yourself when you started. So it's like, I'm kind of surprised that he's almost for like going back, but you'll see, we'll get into that.
respondents said that they were more productive and engaged with their work, and that they were saving an average of 40 minutes a day from commuting. Second, employees are looking for less work. See, during the pandemic, as some businesses downsized their staff, that increased workload fell on fewer employees who had to pick up the slack. All of a sudden, one person was doing the workload of 2, and the expectation was that in the very beginning, hey, at least you're fortunate to have a job to begin with. But
yeah, that was the story of the whole Great Recession. You're lucky to have a job. And people actually work harder from home. I think there's more work when you work from home. You work longer, but you're able to have more flexibility. And that's the key benefit of it, aside from
But
not losing.
now that has completely changed. With a labor shortage and a strong economy, employees now have the chance to look for other opportunities where they can make the same, if not more money with less work, so they're taking it. Third, people are quitting because they value career growth. It was found that 80% of those thinking of leaving a job are concerned about career growth, and nearly 75% say the pandemic made them rethink their skill set.
Yeah, the pandemic made people rethink a lot of things for sure. And wanting remote work is definitely one of those.
Some people are even taking this into their own hands with new business applications, the highest on record in 20.
Exactly. Entrepreneurial ventures, becoming a YouTuber, all of the above.
2021. 4, employees are also quitting because they're getting better offers with higher pay. Now, I've covered this one before, but even pre-pandemic, workers who stayed loyal to the same job make, on average, 50% less than.
That's 100% true. If you don't move from job to job, you get screwed. You're locked in. Well, you're not locked in, but if you stay in the same job, I can speak from firsthand experience, your compensation is never going to increase like it would if you jump from job to job every 3 years.
Someone who switches jobs every 2 to 3 years. That's because the workers who switch jobs are able to negotiate better terms with an increased pay. And now during a worker shortage, employees have more leverage in terms of where and who they work for. And 5th, companies are now just flat out getting more competitive. In 2022, employees have the upper hand. Even the industries in Silicon.
And that's a great feeling. Employees having power is a great feeling. That's not something that has been a constant in our history, at least in the United States here, and that's a great feeling.
Valley are no longer geographically tied to San Francisco, with the staffing agency saying what we're seeing is basically a 40% premium when comparing current ranges against pre-COVID salaries.
And that's something I think too, like in big cities, they want to force people to be in an office because, like in a high taxed city like New York or San Francisco or even LA, I think that if people like all had the option to work from home, they would all leave that city. So I can understand that in big cities, but the same logic shouldn't apply nationwide. I can understand it for those, but again, it shouldn't be everywhere.
For tech workers. However, unfortunately, this does not quite end here, because even though employees are able to pick and choose where they work, the reality is 1 year later, 72% of them now regret leaving, and that is something we absolutely have to discuss. Although when it comes to searching for new work or growing your business, the good news is that finding the right person doesn't need to be
skip the sponsorship.
In fact,
here.
4 to 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter are new employees. ZipRecruiter is regret. According to a new survey, 72% of workers who changed their jobs were surprised to learn that their new roles were different from what they were led to believe, causing a term known as shift shock. Shift shock.
Yeah, if you just plan to be out of the workforce entirely, if you plan things and manage your finances and things like that up to that point, you probably won't have that problem.
Hard to say. Shift shock. Now, the reason them to join. As a result, more and more workers are choosing to quit their jobs again than stick it out for 1 to 2 years to avoid a stain on their record. In fact, 80% of millennials and Gen Z say that it's okay to leave a new job in 6 months. 1 out of 5 admitted that they would quit within a month if it's not as expected, and nearly half would try to get their old job back. On top of that, we're now beginning to see
skip the ad here in just a second.
To see a shift back to the office, with 50% of companies wanting their workers to
that headline just gives me heart palpitations. Like I can't stand seeing that headline. It's just so egregious. I'll never go back to that kind of model.
Turn in person 5 days a week, but as you're about to see, it's not going so well.
And it's not going to, because like I said, the genie's out of the bottle.
Goldman Sachs, for example, demanded that their workers return for a 5-day work week.
See, these big finance company CEOs still have that mentality that, oh, you have to be in the office 5 days a week to be productive. It's taken longer than most people thought it would for some of these CEOs to come around, but it's got to happen eventually.
But only half showed up. The CEO explained that part of the secret sauce is that they come together and collaborate and work with people that are much more experienced.
Yeah, see, that's all they have, collaboration, and then more new people getting experience. But all of that can be done on Zoom. Welcome to the 21st century.
Yes, than they are. So as for why workers don't want to return, the reason is no longer COVID, but instead 61% say that they want to work from home because they want to, despite their offices having reopened.
Those lazy millennials, how dare they?
In terms of management's response, nearly 70% said that remote workers are more easy.
This amuses me here. So yeah, the management's response versus the workers. So workers, like, and I'm myself included, want to work from home. Like, I'm not worried about COVID anymore. Honestly, I prefer to work from home. But management, look at this, nearly 70% replied that remote workers are more easily replaceable than on-site workers. About 62% contend that full-time remote work is detrimental to employees' career objectives. 72% say they would prefer all of their subordinates to be working in the office. And see, that's the mentality that's so infuriating with management.
Easily replaceable than on-site workers. About 62% contend, and 72% say. And surprisingly, the majority of employees agree with this. Those employees admitted that they're missing out on opportunities.
This is where I start to disagree. I don't agree at all. And this is something, no matter how big I get on YouTube, like nobody's going to ever get me to say, hey, can we get you to nudge your fellow millennials here into wanting to come back into an office? No, I'm steadfast on this. I never, ever want to go to a 5-day work week in the office ever again. And I'll always have the same stance on that.
opportunities for networking. And people who are working from home feel the pressure to log even more hours in a day to validate their jobs, even though remote work is beneficial and increases performance. But still, 52% of workers would choose permanent full-time remote work if given the option. In Google's case, employees are pushing back against the April 4th deadline to return back to the office 3 days a week, saying that the policy should be work from the office when you want or when it makes sense.
Which the thing with that, it's never going to make sense to work from the office because you've been doing your job remotely. You have all these tools to collaborate remotely. So the caveat to that, when is it ever going to make sense to be in an office? I wouldn't mind being in an office for certain things. Like I think team building activities are great, like outside of work. Those are fine, but just the office is not necessary at this point.
Plus, things are getting bad when other companies are resorting to free food to get people to return with
Now that is another benefit. Discounted cafeteria meals and things like that.
even the IRS struggling with competitive pay when they can't offer more than $15 an hour. Right now, employees are beginning to redefine the worth it equation in terms of where they want to work and what they're willing to give up in return. There's also very much a disconnect between employers and employees, with 81% of employees saying they're more productive today compared to a year ago, but 54% of business leaders saying that productivity has been negatively impacted. But regardless of
See, that's a stat they're just pulling out of thin air. Like they know better. I mean, they can see the metrics.
what the surveys show, workers are beginning to quit en masse, with 64% citing better work-life.
And if that's true, about 50% of companies wanting to go back to a 5-day in the office work week, there's going to be another wave of the Great Resignation, and it will be massive.
Balance, and 17% saying that they've relocated and cannot easily reach the office anymore.
And that happens too. Like I said, when the genie's out of the bottle and people move, they move way away, they're not going to be able to just come back, and they can't really be forced back.
Gen Z, however, is taking matters to the extreme by publicly quitting.
Oh, Gen Z. If you thought millennials were bad, look out for Gen Z, right?
On TikTok, with one worker, Aaliyah, having switched jobs every 18 months and doubling her salary in just 3 years. In this case, job hoppers are taking advantage of the worker shortage and using that upper hand to enter new positions at an even higher salary, although this is really nothing new. Like I mentioned earlier, workers who stay at the same employer for longer than 2 years on average earn 50% less than those who hop from one job to another. This allows you to start over your new baseline salary at a much higher amount than if you had stayed at the next 12 months. It's expected that another quarter of the workforce is going to quit, and 9% say that they're ready to flat out retire. That's continuing to create a worker shortage, with 11.3 million jobs available in January, and salaries continuing to increase. Although in terms of my thoughts on this, as someone who both works from home and hires people who work from home, honestly, I'm a bit mixed. On the one hand, I see the advantage of working from home. And during a worker shortage, if you're trying to attract the top talent, if you don't give them something competitive, somebody else will. Trading in person that can't be replaced over Zoom. I found firsthand that meeting face-to-face does inspire more creativity, free thinking, and new ideas.
Yeah, but you can do that over Zoom. So that's the gist of that. I just wanted to react to that video. And like I said, that's a really hot button issue for me. I'll always be steadfast on the issue of working from home versus going into an office. I never want to go back to a 5-day work week again. So, and I'm going to do more videos on the Great Resignation. Maybe one day I'll even do a video on why I'm a part of it. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and take care. Thanks.